All right, so let's dive into some material that I think is going to be really fascinating.
Okay.
You sent over a bunch of sources,
Right.
articles, research papers,
Yeah.
even a couple YouTube videos, and they all kind of revolve around this idea of rewiring our brains for success,
Uh-huh.
specifically focusing on wealth creation. So we're talking about like tapping into the neuroscience of motivation and understanding how our brains are wired for success.
Yeah, I think what's really intriguing about this is that it goes beyond just like wanting to be wealthy.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the underlying neurological mechanisms
Right.
that drive our actions and behaviors, particularly when it comes to achieving ambitious goals.
It's almost like we're trying to hack our own operating systems.
Right, totally. Yeah.
And a lot of this material, highlights this key distinction between two types of motivation, extrinsic and intrinsic.
Exactly. And I think this is where things start to get really, really interesting. We've been conditioned to chase these external rewards, money, status, recognition. But what happens when that initial rush fades away?
Yeah, it's like that feeling when you finally buy that expensive gadget you've been saving up for.
Yes.
And the anticipation leading up to it is often more exciting than actually owning it.
That's a perfect example because it highlights this inherent problem with relying solely on extrinsic motivation. It's like rocket fuel, powerful but short-lived.
Yeah.
That initial dopamine rush we get, anticipating a reward, quickly fades once we achieve that goal.
So then we come to intrinsic motivation, which, from what I'm gathering from these sources, is about finding that internal drive, that satisfaction that comes from the activity itself.
Precisely. And that's where we tap into something far more powerful and sustainable.
Okay.
Think of it like fusion energy, the power source of the stars.
Whoa.
It's self-sustaining, incredibly efficient, and it makes even the most challenging tasks feel almost effortless.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this whole rewiring concept is so important. But how do we actually make that shift from relying on external rewards to cultivating this internal drive?
Well, several of these sources, particularly the work of Reprogram, delve into specific factors that fuel this intrinsic drive. And they point to these 5 key motivators: curiosity, mastery, autotoxicity, purpose, and autonomy.
Now, let's break down each of these motivators, because I have a feeling they hold the key to unlocking our true potential.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Let's start with curiosity, the innate desire to learn and explore.
Right.
Think of it as the spark that ignites the fire of motivation.
Okay.
It's what propels us to seek out new information, new experiences.
It's like the difference between passively reading a textbook and actively diving into a topic that truly captivates you.
Yes.
One feels like a chore, the other's an adventure.
Exactly. And now, coupled with curiosity is this concept of mastery, this pursuit of excellence and continuous improvement. It's what drives us to refine our skills and take on new challenges.
Right.
And when we start to see ourselves becoming more proficient at something, that fuels our motivation even further.
This reminds me of Reprogramm's own story, which he details in one of the YouTube videos you shared.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about initially struggling with motivation during his academic journey.
Yeah.
He had the curiosity, he had a sense of purpose, but something was missing.
And what he realized was that the structure of academia didn't allow him to fully experience that continuous improvement loop. He was passionate about consciousness, but the day-to-day tasks themselves weren't fulfilling.
Right.
It was affecting his sense of mastery.
So that brings us to autotoxicity, a term I had to look up myself.
Yeah.
It essentially means finding joy and satisfaction in the activity itself, regardless of any external reward.
Think of it as the difference between working late because you have to and working late because you're so engrossed in what you're doing that you completely lose track of time.
I see.
That's autotoxicity in action.
It's like that stereotype of the programmer who gets so absorbed in their code that they forget to eat or sleep.
Totally.
They're completely driven by the inherent satisfaction of the work itself.
Precisely. Now, let's not forget about purpose.
Right.
This is what gives our work meaning and connects it to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
It's the fuel that keeps us going when things get tough.
Without a sense of purpose, it's easy to fall into that rat race mentality.
Absolutely.
Just going through the motions for a paycheck.
Yeah.
But when you feel like your work is contributing to something meaningful, it completely changes your perspective.
Absolutely. And finally, we have autonomy, that sense of control over our work.
Okay.
This means having a say in what we do, how we do it, and when we do it.
Even if you don't have complete control over your job, finding even small pockets where you can exercise choice can make a world of difference.
Yes.
It gives you a sense of ownership over your work.
You're absolutely right. And in his video, Doris talks about how he eventually realized that his autotoxicity and autonomy were being stifled in academia. He needed to change a career where all 5 of these intrinsic motivators were firing on all cylinders.
And he found that by co-founding his own business.
Exactly.
Where he could fully pursue his curiosity about consciousness.
Yeah.
While also having the autonomy and mastery he craved.
What's fascinating here is how these 5 intrinsic motivators all work in synergy.
Yeah.
They reinforce each other, creating that positive feedback loop we talked about earlier. Right. The more you nurture one, the stronger the others become.
So if even one of these motivators is lacking, it can throw off the whole system.
It can.
But the good news is it sounds like we can actively work to boost them.
Exactly. And that's where we can start to get into some of the more practical advice offered by these sources.
Yeah.
They provide very actionable steps to reprogram our minds for success.
Yeah.
Specifically when it comes to wealth creation.
Okay.
We've laid the groundwork by understanding the power of intrinsic motivation.
Right.
But now let's get into the how-tos.
All right. This is where it gets really exciting for me.
Right.
I'm all for theory, but I love getting into the nitty-gritty of how to actually apply these concepts in real life.
Sure.
So what specific techniques did you find most compelling?
Well, the first step, and this is highlighted in several of the articles, is to assess your own intrinsic motivators.
Okay.
Where are you currently running low? Is it curiosity?
Right.
Purpose?
Yeah.
Autonomy?
Okay.
Think of it like taking inventory of your motivational fuel tank.
That's like stepping back and asking yourself, what's really driving me right now?
Yeah.
Am I relying too heavily on external rewards to keep me going?
Exactly. And once you've identified those areas of weakness,
right,
you can start to address them strategically.
Okay.
Let's say your curiosity is waning.
Okay.
One technique that Doris emphasizes is finding ways to make learning directly relevant to your work.
Oh, interesting.
He calls it leverage from learning.
So it's not just about passively absorbing information. It's about actively seeking out knowledge that can have a tangible impact on your goals.
Yes.
And I imagine the immediacy of that impact also plays a role in boosting motivation.
You've hit the nail on the head. That immediate feedback loop is crucial.
Yeah.
It reinforces the connection between learning and results.
Right.
Now, let's say you're feeling a lack of mastery.
Okay.
The key here is to identify the skills you need to succeed, particularly in your chosen field or career.
Right.
And then practice them deliberately, pushing yourself just beyond your comfort zone.
This reminds me of the concept of deliberate practice, which emphasizes focused effort and continuous refinement.
Yes.
It's not just about putting in the hours, it's about constantly seeking feedback and pushing the boundaries of your skill set.
Precisely now, when it comes to boosting autotoxicity, it can be a bit more nuanced.
Okay.
One approach Doris suggests is to focus on what you're naturally good at, those tasks or activities that seem to come effortlessly to you.
So playing to your strengths.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like finding that sweet spot where talent meets enjoyment.
Uh-huh.
And from what I'm understanding, the idea is that as you achieve mastery in those areas, the passion and intrinsic motivation will naturally follow.
Exactly. It's not necessarily about chasing your current passions,
right,
but rather identifying your strengths and trusting that passion will develop over time as you become more proficient.
I see.
Now, purpose can be a powerful motivator, especially when it comes to wealth creation.
Okay.
The key here is to connect your financial goals to a larger mission, something that gives your work meaning and significance beyond just accumulating money.
So even if you're dealing with mundane tasks or facing setbacks, remembering why you're doing it, that connection to a greater purpose can help fuel your drive.
Exactly.
It's like that old saying, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But in this case, it's about having a clear vision of the destination, enjoying the journey along the way.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, let's talk about autonomy. We all crave a certain level of control over our lives, especially when it comes to our work.
Right.
The challenge is that many of us don't have the luxury of complete autonomy in our jobs.
Right. But even in situations where you have limited control, finding small pockets where you can exercise choice can make a world of difference.
Absolutely.
It's about taking ownership over the aspects of your work that you can control, even if it's just how you approach a task or the order in which you complete your to-do list.
Absolutely. And Doris also talks about cultivating what he calls FOO autonomy.
FOO autonomy.
Which is essentially about building skills and networks outside of work.
Right.
That give you a sense of optionality and freedom.
So it's like having a backup plan, a sense of security, knowing that you have other options if your current situation doesn't align with your needs or goals.
Exactly. And it's not just about having a plan B, it's about actively investing in your personal growth and expanding your skill set, which can boost your confidence and your sense of self-efficacy.
I love that. It's like we're not just talking about rewiring our brains for wealth, but also for a sense of agency and empowerment over our lives.
You've hit on a crucial point. True wealth encompasses so much more than just financial abundance.
Right.
It's about designing a life that is aligned with your values, your passions, and your definition of success.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the 5 intrinsic motivators and how we can actively cultivate them to fuel our drive.
Yes.
But I have a feeling there's another layer to this whole rewiring process.
Yeah.
Something that delves into the deeper psychological aspects of wealth creation.
You're absolutely right. And this is where we get into the fascinating realm of beliefs and how our early experiences, particularly around money, can shape our subconscious mindsets and ultimately influence our financial outcomes.
This is where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated by the idea that our beliefs, especially those formed in childhood, can have such a powerful impact on our lives.
It's incredibly powerful. And when it comes to wealth creation, these subconscious beliefs, often referred to as money scripts, can either support or sabotage our efforts.
So we're talking about those deep-seated beliefs about money success and what we deserve, right?
Yeah.
The kind of messages we might have absorbed from our parents, our upbringing, or even society as a whole.
Exactly. For example, if you grew up hearing phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are greedy, those messages can become ingrained in your subconscious and influence your financial decisions.
It's like having an internal program running in the background, shaping our thoughts and behaviors without us even realizing it.
Precisely. And these money scripts can be incredibly limiting.
Yeah.
They can create fear, scarcity, and a sense of unworthiness when it comes to wealth.
So how do we break free from these limiting beliefs? If they're so deeply ingrained, how do we even begin to reprogram those money scripts?
Well, the first step is awareness.
Okay.
We need to become conscious of those subconscious beliefs, and once we've identified them, we can start to challenge their validity.
So it's about questioning those long-held assumptions and asking ourselves, is this belief truly serving me, or is it holding me back?
Exactly. And one of the sources you shared, Alex Hormozi's YouTube video, Reprogram Your Mind to Be Rich in 22 Minutes, offers a really intriguing approach to this.
Yeah.
He uses a technique called inversion thinking.
Inversion thinking. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's about approaching a problem from the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Instead of asking, how do I get rich? You ask, how do I stay poor?
Ah, I see. By identifying all the things that lead to poverty, you can then reverse engineer those behaviors to create a roadmap for wealth.
Precisely, and Hormozi outlines a whole list of behaviors that keep people trapped in a cycle of poverty.
Like what?
Things like procrastinating, blaming others, avoiding discomfort, and seeking validation from external sources.
So by flipping those behaviors on their heads, you essentially create a blueprint for success.
Yeah.
Avoid those poverty traps, and you're more likely to end up on the path to wealth.
It's a powerful concept, and it highlights the importance of taking ownership of our actions and choices.
Right.
We can't just rely on external circumstances or luck.
Yeah.
We need to actively cultivate the mindsets and behaviors that support financial abundance.
This has been a fascinating deep dive.
Yes.
We've explored the neuroscience of motivation, the 5 intrinsic motivators, and the power of rewiring those subconscious money scripts. So it's almost like we've been given a toolkit for hacking our own minds for success.
And the key takeaway here is that wealth creation is not just about external strategies or financial tactics.
Right.
It's about cultivating the right mindset, the right beliefs, and the right internal drive.
I'm curious what stands out to you as the most actionable takeaway for our listener. If they could walk away from this deep dive with just one key insight, what would it be?
I would say this, start by identifying one limiting belief you have about money. Maybe it's something you heard growing up, or a fear that's been holding you back. Once you've identified that belief, challenge its validity. Ask yourself, is this belief based on truth or simply on fear and conditioning? Then actively work to reframe that belief into something more empowering.
That's a great call to action. It's a simple yet powerful step that anyone can take.
It is.
And it highlights the fact that we have the power to choose our beliefs and shape our own financial destiny.
We absolutely do.
And on that note, we want to thank you, our listener, for joining us in this deep dive into the fascinating world of neuroscience, motivation, and wealth creation. We encourage you to take what you've learned today and start applying it to your own life. Remember, you have the power to rewire your mind for success, to unlock your full potential, and to create a life of true abundance.
It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you, and we wish you all the best on your journey to financial and personal freedom.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've explored the neuroscience of motivation, the 5 intrinsic motivators, and the power of rewiring those subconscious money scripts. It's almost like we've been given a toolkit for hacking our own minds for success.
And the key takeaway here is that wealth creation is not just about external strategies or financial tactics.
Right.
It's about cultivating the right mindset, the right beliefs, and the right internal drive.
I'm curious what stands out to you as the most actionable takeaway for our listener. If they could walk away from this deep dive with just one key insight, what would it be?
I would say this: start by identifying one limiting belief you have about money, maybe it's something you heard growing up, or a fear that's been holding you back.
Okay.
Once you've identified that belief, challenge its validity, ask yourself, is this belief based on truth or simply on fear and conditioning? Then actively work to reframe that belief into something more empowering.
That's a great call to action. It's a simple yet powerful step that anyone can take.
It is.
And it highlights the fact that we have the power to choose our beliefs and shape our own financial destinies.
We absolutely do.
And on that note, we want to thank you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of neuroscience, motivation, and wealth creation. We encourage you to take what you've learned today and start applying it to your own life. Remember, you have the power to rewire your mind for success, to unlock your full potential, and to create a life of true abundance.
It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you, and we wish you all the best on your journey to financial and personal freedom.